this little time window that you have early on this season is going to make or break you, just straight up. So don't skip any of these steps. 12 most common things that growers tend to forget whenever they're planting out. Number one, they forget to harden off just in general. They get, hey, my seedlings look great. I feel like the weather's great. I'm going to throw them outside and hope for the best. That's not what a great grower does. A great grower, in their planning, in their crop selection, in their harvest, everything that you're planting out, no matter when the time of the year is, if you're planting seeds, don't forget that 7 to 10 day hardening off period. Number two, farmers tend to forget to monitor the temperature. They don't take into account, okay, here's my germination chamber. They got a heat mat. It's specifically set for the germination temperature of what my plants need. So if it's a pepper or tomato, it's generally going to be higher. If it's lettuce, it's going to be much, much lower and without a heat mat. So maybe you did that perfect. But then you take it outside and you don't take into account that could be a 20, 30, 35 degree difference between your inside perfect seed starting situation to outside. Then you get busy and you forget, and all of a sudden it's the middle of the day and all of your seedlings are dropped like a rock. So don't forget to monitor the temperature and don't forget to pay attention to what those plants may need from 1 minute to the next. I mean, as you know, your farmers, we spend a lot of time outside. You know, if a storm front blows in, there's a lot of wind, gets real cold, gets real hot, all of a sudden, don't go inside and get distracted by life and then forget about these plants. Because just like one little moment can stunt these plants and you may have to start over. Number three, maybe you wake up during your third or fourth day of hardening off and you just go direct, I forgot to do it, I'm gonna put these plants out in the middle of the day, and now all of a sudden you have sunburn or sunscald on the leaves. Don't forget to do this thing early on in the morning. So gradually bring this thing up to full light, full temperature. Don't skip any steps. Don't put it directly into the heat of the day. Number four, wind protection. Pay attention, especially, I'm not too worried about it in the summer unless you're just like live in a windy area. But if you're planting your early season crops in March, where it tends to be super windy anyway, and it's always calmer in the morning, and as the sun comes up, it starts heating up the ground, it starts moving air. Don't forget, it could get real windy, real fast. You don't want your tender seedlings to just completely blow over. That could damage the cell structure. It could damage the long-term growth ability of those stems. Number five, consistent watering. So I'm super guilty of this. Like everything I'm telling you, like I've made these mistakes, so I know firsthand how frustrating it is to lose a whole cell tray or multiple cell trays of your plants. But if you think, hey, it's gonna get hot, I'm gonna extra water these things, and now the seeds are waterlogged or they're pretty wet, I'm gonna go ahead and put them out, and then you forget, the sun comes out, and now all of a sudden it's too dry, you've now stunted a whole tray full of lettuce. And again, I keep talking about these distractions. You know it, I know it. Whether you're on a farm or in your garden, life happens. You get hungry, you go in to get something to eat, and the next thing you know, you're on YouTube watching one of these videos, and 2 hours later, your plants are burning up. These distractions are the difference between a well-run farm or garden and people that just like put it out and forget and have to start all over, or worse yet, take those stunted seeds, plant and just hope for the best and never fully realize the full opportunity that these plants have. Number six, again, the timing of the acclimation. If you forget to harden off or if you cut it short, you're not giving these plants the full ability. It's like taking a kid all the way to 6th grade and then shipping them off to the factory. You want them to go through junior high, you want them to go through high school. That's the most critical steps. You've already taken the time in the first 3 to 5 days. Go ahead and finish out the process and don't get in a hurry. Number seven, forgetting to prep the soil. So during this hardening off process, you're gonna have a little bit of extra time, we hope, because you've scheduled everything correctly. Maybe you have time to pull a silage tarp back, flame weed, prep your bed, do some amending, things like that. And as your plants are hardening off, you're also getting the soil ready. So what I don't want you to do is harden off, forget to prep the soil, and you're going straight in a hard pan that's just gonna run water off. You're going to straight in a hard pan that doesn't have enough loose soil in there for those very tender roots that now want to explode once they get in there because they're out of their cell tray, right? They want to grow. So don't limit their ability to go ahead and grow. Give that loose soil some amendments, Get it pre-watered. Don't plant directly into dry soil. Let's get everything as perfect as possible. This little time window that you have early on the season or in the succession planting is going to make or break you, just straight up. So don't skip any of these steps because you have the whole rest of the year to go on about your business. Tend to your plants when they need it. Number 8, and this may come down to very specific either varieties or where you're at in the country, but forgetting about pest protection. So one of the things that you can do is use insect netting, both as a shade cloth and a frost blanket, and just give yourself that physical barrier between any early season, or if we're talking about succession plantings, aphids are already out, cabbage worms are already out, fungus is already floating about. Put that physical barrier up as you're acclimating these plants. That way they don't have to get used to the wind, get used to the heat, maybe have to deal with a little bit of water loss, plus the added stress of a little bit of early season pest. So go ahead and put up a physical barrier. You'll be glad you did. Number 9, planting willy-nilly. I want you to really take a look at the back of the seed package and plan for this as you're seeding. Hopefully you've already figured this out before the hardening off process. Don't plant too deep. Don't plant too shallow. Every seed package that you get from like a commercial seed supplier is going to tell you this needs to be 1 inch, this needs to be 5 inches, whatever the case may be. But don't just like throw it in the ground and treat every plant the same. All of these different varieties, sometimes even like the same crop, but a different variety may have a little different need. And the purpose of this video is to like separate the good growers from the great growers. These little details that we're talking about are going to help you do that. Number 10 thing that people forget to do, and we already talked about it in the pitfalls that we mentioned a few minutes ago, but forgetting to correctly space your plants. And there's 2 different schools of thought. Do exactly as the seed package says, or I do know a lot of people, and especially some bigger commercial growers, that will reduce that a little bit. That's going to come in time. So if this is your first or second year or it's a new crop, go ahead and plant some like textbook. If it says 6 inches, do it 6 inches on center, and then experiment with a certain percentage, 10, 20, maybe 30%, and space it a little bit closer just to see if you can get more yield out of the same amount of land. And again, a lot of times this is going to come down to experience, maybe some online classes that you're taking. They'll be able to better tell you very specifically this variety of lettuce can be planted tighter. If you're doing cabbages or broccoli or something like that, they're going to take up so much room, but all that room is like non-harvestable parts of the plant, and we're just focused on the very center. Do your research, see if you can plant that a little tighter and see what the recommendations are. Number 11 is inconsistent hardening off. So man, believe me, I know we all get super busy, and I guarantee you, and we're not going to fault you for it, you're going to plant some stuff this year that you're really not going to harden off. I know it, you know it, case closed. But if you can, just make sure, especially in the early parts of the season or the very, very hottest parts of the season, that you're taking time to harden off. The results are going to be so much better. And the number 12 thing that typically happens whenever people are forgetting to harden off or not hardening off correctly, and this really ties into what we just talked about not hardening off at all, is just not losing your patience. 7 to 10 days, that's a long time, especially as you're excited early on in the season or as demand at the market is driving you to plant more often. We're just asking you, or your plants are asking you, to be a little bit patient, give them time to acclimate, and you're going to be well paid off in the future by the result.